All right, we're going to look at the 13 colonies, a quick overview of the entire colonies. We'll look at New England, the Mid-Atlantic, or what we more commonly call the Middle Colonies, and the Southern Colonies. So let's start off with the New England colonies. And so the New England colonies, you can see here, as you know, it's the cold winters, mild summers. The good thing about mild summers is it don't have as many problems with disease, often because of those milder summers and shorter growing season. But of course, what goes along with that is a shorter growing season. So the farming and things that happen is not as good. The forests, there's lots of forests which are great for shipbuilding and homes and all the other things that you use wood for, but and certainly for exports to England. But it's got, as we said, poor soil, so along with the short growing season, it's not great for farming. Now, that doesn't mean there's not farming. There's plenty of farming that does happen, but it's at the subsistence level. So it is always subsistence farming. It's great handwriting there, subsistence farming. Okay, and the big parts of the economy are the lumber, the shipbuilding, fishing, whaling, and trade. One thing that's not on this list is trade, and that's a big part of the economy as well. Centers like Boston have lots of trade, and they're just and that's the big one in the New England colonies. So the reason for settlement, in general, it's escaping religious persecution. Now, so Massachusetts is kind of the one that's known for that, starting with the Plymouth colony, and then the Massachusetts Bay colony, which combined later on to become just one colony of Massachusetts. But this whole region, it's mostly Puritans that move here, and they are escaping persecution in England. In England, you can't be a Puritan, or if you are, you have a lot of conflict. And so they're coming to the New World and setting up a new, a system of government that allows them to basically practice their religion. But they're not allowing others to practice necessarily, and that's where we end up with other colonies like Rhode Island, where they are, have a lot more religious freedom. And there's lots of different things about the government there. Town meetings are a big part of the New England colonies. The Mayflower Compact is a huge part. It is a big, it's kind of one of those early documents showing this idea of majoritarian rule, which isn't exactly what we have, but it is this idea that the people have a voice in their government and will come together and decide things. And then the Fundamental Orders of Connecticut is a constitution. It's the first written constitution in the colonies that creates a government, a representative government where people have a voice in their government. And so it's an early tradition from New England, and these are some of the key things about the New England region. The middle colonies, on the other hand, the climate it's still cold winters and mild summers, but it's a little bit longer growing season, and the soil is in much better soil, and so there's still lots of forests in this region, and so lumber and shipbuilding still happens, but there's also lots and lots of growing of grains, and there's also cattle. And this area is known as the breadbasket colonies. These colonies are the breadbasket colonies because they provide so much grain and things like that, and for the whole region. And for all the other colonies in many cases. There's also a lot of iron, so iron that is used back in England to make all sorts of things from plows and pots and nails. Those are manufactured in England usually, and then sold back to the colonies in that system we know as mercantilism. Reason for settlement here, also once again often escaping religious persecution. Now the original settlers here in this region is actually the Netherlands. The Netherlands settles this, and it's called New Netherlands. And this is New York, New Jersey, parts of Pennsylvania, and even a little bit of Delaware. The Swedish end up in Delaware more than the Netherlands, but the English take it over, and this becomes these different colonies of New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. And Pennsylvania in particular is settled by the Quakers, and then therefore Delaware, which was originally part of Pennsylvania, is also kind of lumped into there together, both originally settled by Quakers. Once the English get involved, like I said, the Netherlands settles it first, and then the English come along. So the religion there, you can see it's primarily Protestant. Quakers are a big part of the religious people there in Pennsylvania and Delaware. But there's a lot of tolerance, a lot more tolerance. The Dutch were known, that's the Netherlands. The Dutch are known for tolerance.
All bus riders, please release all bus riders.
And so they have a lot more tolerant views of different religious practices, and so that continued after the English took over. And so that's a big part of why the middle colonies were so important. And then the government, there were proprietary colonies. William Penn is the proprietor. He does end up giving people a voice in their government to some extent, but the proprietors really, especially early on, had a lot of power. And then finally, the southern colonies. We have the southern colonies starting all the way up there with Maryland, all the way down to Georgia. And there's a lot of it's milder winters, hot, humid summers, long growing season. Once again, lots of forests, but excellent soil throughout most of this region. And so the economy, that's still going to be lumber, but it's an agricultural economy. Not lots of big cities, not lots of major trading centers. Agriculture, tobacco is going to be primarily in Virginia and Maryland, and then northern parts of North Carolina as well, or North Carolina. Then rice is going to be a big part of South Carolina and Georgia, and then indigo. A little bit later, indigo comes along. Also, we're still going to have grains and cattle that are grown in this region, cattle that are raised in these regions. But this is going to be just predominantly agriculture, and tobacco is a big part of it, and then rice in South Carolina and Georgia. So the reason people came here, well, it's a new start. It's about making money. Georgia was originally, as you know, was for a haven for debtors, and it was settled, to try to help as James Oglethorpe said, as the worthy poor. And for debtors. Now, very few debtors actually come there, but that was kind of the idea. But this idea that it's a new start, a new place to go, a place to get land, and many people that came there were indentured servants. They came there to be a servant for somebody else. Somebody paid for them to come there, and then after 7 long years really working for somebody else, you had the opportunity to gain your freedom and get your own land perhaps, although the best land was already taken by the wealthy, and so the poor end up moving out west, which causes them some problems because that's where the Native Americans are, and so the poor end up being in conflict with Native Americans and then also not getting as good a land. A big thing with government in the southern area, southern region, is the Virginia House of Burgesses is the first representative body in the New World. It's a legislator. In other words, the people get to elect representatives. Now, it wasn't all the people, wasn't women, wasn't the poor. If you didn't own land, you were not going to be able to vote. But landowners are voting and electing representatives to this Virginia House of Burgesses, which is really just a fancy word for representative. Carolinas, they're a proprietary colony at first. In other words, there's people that basically kind of run that, but they eventually also gain some more rights, much like they have in Virginia. So that's a quick overview of the New England, Middle, and Southern colonies, especially focusing on kind of the economic and the economic activities of the regions and the reasons for settlement. So I hope this will help you on your test and filling out your study guide. Have a good one.